Welcome to a new episode of Advancing Consciousness series with Franco Di Nicola. This is a place where people can come to gain further insight and clarity as to what is going on and how we can shift things on a personal and global level, while also accessing higher levels of consciousness and awareness. We bring this series to you free of charge so that many are able to access this information. However, if you resonate with what Franco shares and you would like to support his work to get more content out, contributions are welcomed and greatly appreciated. A link is in the description and will be provided in the chat if you feel guided to do so. Also, we have many previous workshops, such as the most recent, Bringing Out the New You to Play in the New World, along with our membership program, Let's Talk About You, where like-minded people come together bi-weekly to talk about the topics requiring deeper understanding and clarity. All of these are available on Teachable, and we encourage you to check them out as they are great resources at very affordable prices to assist in better understanding this human experience. The Teachable link will also be provided in the chat and is also in the description. And lastly, don't forget to share. As more of us come together who are creating shifts in themselves, the more effective it will be to shift things globally. Thank you for joining us and being part of the change. Enjoy today's broadcast.
All right, welcome everybody to another episode of Advancing Consciousness series. And sorry for the delay. We've had quite a few technical issues on getting online for some reason. I had to launch it 3 or 4 times before we could get it going, and it didn't want to work on either platforms, actually, believe it or not. So we're not sure what happened, but we finally got up, and then of course the video was incorrect and so forth. So you've probably noticed the wrong title showing up in the beginning there. But anyways, here we are. We finally made it. We're online. We're on episode 35, and basically today we're going to look at how does fear survival program impact our world? Well, it does play a huge role for us in a very powerful way, and a lot of times we don't realize how much it does. But it's not only the world. We're not talking about just the world. It's our own world, our own essence of ourselves, our own experience, our own reality, our own engagement and play that we experience with one another and within ourselves. And right now, what we've been going through for several months and where we are right now, that has been pushed so powerfully. This whole idea of being afraid of one another, afraid of some virus, afraid of, things going bad, or that, we're going to lose this or that, and things are falling apart. But not only that, we're going into the fear part of it, and then we step into the next part is the survival. And both are you entangled with each other and creating quite a reality in our personal life, in our first levels of dynamic play with one another, and also what we are experiencing throughout the world right now. So it became very important and powerful, the message that this is something we need to play with, because right now we want things to move forward. And we're not talking about going back to the way it was. We're talking about moving forward in a powerful way and creating a new reality, a personal reality and a collective reality. But one of the things that is becoming still very apparent, that we are still operating in a program, and I say program because I'm going to explain that more clearly, program of this fear and survival. So the reason I say program, because it is not our natural operating system. When we were designed in these physicalities, as much as people have said, we've come through certain lineage of life, being from apes and evolution and all of that stuff, and then the fight and flight and survival was necessary to play that game. But that's not how it was. There have been other civilizations, other versions that played on the planet Earth that experienced some of that, but that was not our original design. In our original design, 15,000 years ago, there was none of that in our operating system. In fact, everything was harmonious. Everything was a total connection to oneness. There was such appreciation and also a recognition that each one of us were fueled and connected and being interconnected, but in a way playing together, in experiencing itself as these powerful ways of expression and experiencing one another. So what better way to experience life more expanded than playing with other aspects of yourself? Because every single human, every single sentient being, including planet Earth, is another aspect of yourself. And be able to experience all of that all at once in a very powerful way. And that's how it was designed. So the whole thing about even considering the idea of fear, the consideration of survival, was not even on the table. Not for 5,000 years. It did not exist because there was nothing to be afraid of. It was not even a concept to be accepted as an idea. The idea couldn't even be formulated because there was a deeper realization and understanding that we were co-creating, personally creating and co-creating, shaping, designing, creating the engagements from our own directive. We weren't not in sort of a victim state or in a fact where everything was created for you. Now, there was some engagement of some of that playing out, but it was still completely under your approval, your agreement to have that experience. So even when we looked at the whole idea that somehow that, we had to be afraid of nature, afraid of the animal kingdom, afraid of one another, that wasn't even there because even the animal kingdom, the insect world, everything was harmonious with our experience, harmonious in our presence. So being this is a powerful video game, the video game did not have this fight and flight and all of this stuff where we, created these ideas of danger or anything of that nature. Now, you could have had certain experience that may have looked something of that nature, but it wasn't even something that was conceived or put any focus on it. We were experiencing ourselves as these beautiful, powerful beings and enjoying every part of the dance that we had with everything around us, including one another. Now, as I've said in other episodes, and I have shared for years now, until the retooling came in place, and when I'm talking about the influx and operational change that happened 10,000 years ago, that's when this programming got put in place where we had to have fear and what we had to look at as survival. But that only was able to be done when we got disconnected and not seeing ourselves as one any longer, seeing ourselves separate from each other and under the banner that in some way that not only separate, we ended up accentuating polarities, the dark, the light, the wrong, the good, the bad, and all of that stuff that was playing out. Now, it had to be programmed within ourselves to be able to even acknowledge such an operating system, because it is just that. Now, if you realize more powerfully that, and in your daily observation, there's only one part that uses that operating system, and that is your ego. The ego is the one tool that uses information and that program to create a reality of experiencing itself as you need to be afraid, and we are here on survival mode. So, yeah, great. We agreed on accepting that operating system and the separation and the polarization and all of the other stuff that we've gone. And right now, we've had 10,000 years, of course, in different embodiments and whatever else, to play that game, to experience that part of us. Now, of course, now we want to create something different. We want to experience something different. And we are being stimulated in a very powerful way to do so. So we are already connecting more powerfully to ourselves, more powerfully in the way that we experience life than what we've experienced before. In a sense, what we're doing, and I know I shared this in the other episodes, but I wanted to bring it forth again. We're going back to that segment of 5,000 years, starting from 15,000 years to 10,000 years, that segment of time where these programs did not exist. And we're going back to that segment and bringing it forth to where we are now. And that is in an upgraded version of it. Now, for us to be playing the fear role and the survival role, of course, we had to have the ego. That was the actual operating system that used that program. But we also had to create an inverted matrix. We went in from a organic third-dimensional consciousness to an inverted third-dimensional consciousness, where everything worked backwards, where we saw ourselves separate. We saw ourselves experiencing something outside of the playground. Because as much as we are all part of this playground, we don't experience it that way. You see the playground, you see people, you see things, and then there's you. And the interconnection is not there. You almost feel like I'm on this playground, but the only way for me to exist on this playground is to play the game, to play the rules, and I have to perpetuate this fear. Now, of course, as you know, when you enter the body, you come onto the planet, as a child, that doesn't exist, the fear and survival, to any degree. It's actually quite small, and that is only just something you take on as a seed from your family dynamics or from mom and dad, whatever is going on, so that it gives us something to program. But that's just an acceptance of what we accept as part of our experience. So here we are, we're bringing that segment back in so that we get to the capacities and the possibilities to create new realities without feeding the program of fear and survival. Now, let's take a look at fear and survival. As long as we're playing in either one of these, which they're both interconnected, look at what your life looks like, what you experience, what choices you make, what direction you go, how much creativity, how much imagination do you apply while you're in fear. Because as long as we're afraid, we limit, we reduce, we make our world smaller, because the fear creates a box, in a sense, saying, okay, this is all I know that I can work in because that is known. And even that is still some level of fearful, but we're not going to go beyond that. So for us to be able to really go out and play and experience and really get into the game of life and use much more possibilities, the fear is going to be part of what's going to limit you. And that limitation may have been a cool experience up to this point in time. However, do you still want to feed it? Do you still want to play with it? Do you still want to utilize it? You have the freedom to do so. No one's telling you otherwise. However, you can tune into yourself. You can sense in yourself, am I still in love with the idea of fear and survival? Do I want to hold on to it because then I can better relate with others? Do I need to have this because that's what everybody else is doing? Those are your choices. Those are your observation that you have the capacities to focus on. It's yours to play with. And that's the beauty of it. So nobody's forcing you to drop the fear and survival at all. However, what we're creating, what our planet, and especially now that we're in phase 3 that started the end of 2019, really basically 2020, and all of that we're playing out right now, guess what? We really are breaking out or doing every opportunity possible to step outside of playing that particular game of fear and survival. Now let's take a look at what we have experienced so far. Let's take a look at what's happened in the last several months, starting in the end of 2019 up to this point in time, and of course accentuating after the first couple of months into 2020, that we had this so-called virus, so-called enemy, so-called villain of some sort, which is being played out to a certain degree, and then we started going into this fear mode, and we went into survival mode. And what do? We box ourselves in. We make our world smaller. We start to do things that we normally wouldn't do. Isolate ourselves. Start wearing certain gadgetry so that we are not exposed to whatever. And that's a pretty cool way to accentuate what? Fear and survival. Why are we doing that when we're choosing to step outside of that? Well, not all of us, pretty well most, have not got to the saturation point and say, hey, I'm not going to feed this idea of fear and survival anymore because I am understanding who I am. See, this is where it becomes instrumental to connect with yourself. If you're only connected from the mind and the dialogue that is being shared from your mind level, which is really the ego, which has layers and layers of program, if we're exposing ourselves and giving power to the mass media that's telling us constantly, and meaning the only main thing that's been propagated for so long in the last several months about this danger, this fear, this survival and whatever else and so forth, then guess what? It's accentuating. But what happens? The accentuation has its positive to it, because that way it gives us a point of getting to that level where you can experience it and feel it. Because look at it this way, as an example, you can be pushed, and we've all had experiences where we get pushed to a point where the fear doesn't have the same level of grip, because you can see that your world is getting so small. Say with a particular thing that you wanted to do, and then you finally say, enough, I'm going to take a chance. I'm going to step outside of what the fear is dictating. I'm going to step out of this survival mode. Now, once you do that from a perspective of saying just one direction, saying one thing that I wanted to do, and now I go do it, and then you realize that you have a different experience, which doesn't match what you've been creating in the mind. Because you have to understand, the ego creates not only stories but visions, and uses the worst scenario, if you want to call it that. And it always has the next level of worst scenario. So this is the thing. As long as we give power to that, it will continue to feed it and keep us in check. And this is what we're, been experiencing. So all of this is playing out, and all of that, and you can see all of this that's been going out for the last several months, and blocking ourselves and being afraid of one another and being afraid to go outside or being afraid to do whatever, unless you cover whatever it is. It's gotten to a point where more and more people are starting to choose to say, I'm going to look at this. And the other option is, I'm not going to feed it. I don't care. And when I say don't care, I am not concerned. I'm not going to give any more power to this fear, and I'm going to go out because my world has gotten too small. My world is limited. My world does not allow me to feel free and playful in this playground we call Earth. And this is what happens. A lot of us get so closed up that we don't experience life. And this is the thing. Fear can relate to the fear of life. And then life becomes survival. So look at the whole idea of survival for a second here. When we're looking at survival, it needs the idea that either you live or you die. And the point is, we need to be afraid to die so that we continue to live. But to what degree do we live? Do we live an isolated small life, or do we live life to the fullest? That's one part. The other part is being afraid of death and living a small life. Is that life actually worth it? So here you are, these powerful beings, chose to come on planet Earth, chose all of the scenarios, alignments, and so forth, and made agreements to be here, waited in line of sorts, waiting for your cue, your opportunity to take on a physicality. You come here. Yes, you chose to experience some of those limitations, to get a taste of it, and whatever else. And then you're saying, okay, now I bought into the fear and survival and all of that stuff, and now I'm going to live a small life. But we forget that we came here to live life. Now, if you look at life and you look at fear and survival, how much of it does it limit to the point you limit how much you experience, what you do, where you go, who you connect with, what other parts of the world? Now, there's a couple of options. You can be born on a particular place on the planet, and you can say, okay, this is my world. And that's great. You want to immerse yourself in that particular experience. Awesome. Have that experience and live that world of whatever it is. Now, you have to understand there's levels that are involved here. So you're saying, okay, I'm going to stay in this particular province or state or particular city or country or whatever it is. You can choose. There's a lot of places to take on a physicality. And you can say, okay, I'm going to stay and experience this through a saturation point. And I'm also going to engage myself in a family dynamics. And the family dynamics I am not going to let go of. And I'm going to hold on to that. And that is pretty cool. However, the energies that we're doing right now, what we're experiencing, what the changes we're going through is now bringing higher levels of dissatisfaction in living only in those quarters, those boxes that we have created. Meaning that you're feeling more pushed to step out of. And I'm not saying everybody, but more and more people are, and others have already stepped out, but then you can step out even further. So step out of, say, wherever you've been raised or born and held on to. You step out of your family dynamics. That doesn't mean you disconnect from the family dynamics, but you're not going to adhere to whatever they choose to hold on to. You're not going into the whole state of saying, I'm going to follow the rules and whatever else, because that is safe. Because this is one of the things is, because other people are doing certain things, it could be in your family dynamics, your immediate family or extended family, or even your community, whatever you want to call it, and say, well, as long as I'm here, I'm safer. Say safer because you're still never safe under that operating system because it never lets you feel safe. However, saying, okay, it's safer to be that, but you have to observe as you pay attention. This is kind of the exercise you do with yourself. You observe. Well, as long as I'm here, how do I feel about this? Am I convincing myself to stay within these confines and not venture out, not to engage with new people, to go and explore other parts of the world? Because, some people could say, well, I can't explore other worlds because I don't have the resources. Well, a lot of times the resources end up being the way it is to reinforce the fact, or the lack of, reinforce, to keep us stuck. Because if you believe that it's dangerous out there, you don't want to be tempted. So you're going to create the restrictions so that you don't go out and play. You don't leave your area. You don't leave your family dynamics. I've seen it many times with people that I've worked with over the 35 plus years, thousands of people at different times, where they have even afraid to leave their parents' home way into later in their ages, male and female. It doesn't buy to only one gender, feeling that in some way that they don't want to leave their community. And saying, okay, well, I love the community. I love my area. And that's pretty cool. However, you also give yourself the opportunity to expand yourself further than that. And that's one of the things that are, been playing out for us. So the choice you make, so even the research, you say, well, you know something? I am choosing right now to step out of this box. Step out of this confined. And I'm not going to give attention to the fear or even survival. I'm going to go see what else is available for me. But it goes a little further, because you have to understand what is available for you is just further extension of the playground that you have. But how you experience it, how you engage in it, what you do with it, how you utilize it and so forth is your choice. Absolutely your choice. It's not outside of you in any way, shape or form. That we need to understand. So in that regards, here you are venturing. So even the restriction of resources will change the focus and saying, okay, what do I require to make those changes come about where I can have the resource? And I don't need all of it. I can just have a small amount to get started, because as I move forward, I create more opportunities for other resources to come forth. I'm just referring to the resources now. But those resources can be other connections, can be other opportunities to go somewhere else. It's not like you're going to go to and make a choice and say, well, I'm looking for a better life. Well, your life is already perfect wherever you are. You're just going to expand your opportunity to play at different levels, to play in different energetic grids. You're going to play in different connection points and so forth, or in this case, with other aspects of yourself in other countries, in other places, or whatever it is. And if it's not leaving your country and you just want to be more free, you do what you choose and you feel more natural, but you're not living under fear and confinement of survival and so forth. Now, of course, everything that's been stimulated for so far, and we've been programmed and conditioned, because as a child, we don't have any of those reference points. It's so minuscule that you can't even recognize it. However, as good parents or other people around you start to program the same program they have, and they start to stimulate that. And of course, the educational system, the media, and everything else is just fear and survival. You look at the media, you look at education and so forth. It's all geared for that. Now, in doing that, we have created a very restrictive way of play. If you look at our life, how much have we've limited the opportunities? Because I've seen it so often, people getting to their older ages or getting to a point where they're ready to check out because their physicality has compromised in the sense of health-wise. And one of the regrets is that I heard over and over again is saying that I wish I knew what I know right now from looking at where I'm seeing things right now, because I would have never restricted my life. I would have lived a life. So it's not about what I did. It's what I didn't do, what I didn't exercise. What did I not use as my opportunity to create and play in that reality? That is mainly the regret. The moment they leave, it doesn't matter how labeled horrible, whatever that life may have been. Once you're outside the physical body, the ego is no longer there. That operating system is no longer there. And that particular soul, even the human entity and the body itself, doesn't have any recollection of any of that game. And it's excited to restart over again or to choose another path to come back. Now, of course, souls can decide to come back here, can go back, could go onto another planet, whatever it may choose. The human entity, which is another aspect of soul, is actually going to choose to recreate another experience. Now, in saying all of that, I'm just setting the stage here so you have an understanding of how this all works. So when we're talking about fear and survival, It has been a powerful tool to create a limited world, to really support us. Because for us to be able to play inverted 3D, 2D, in an inverted matrix, and to be able to make ourselves so disconnected from one another, to the point where we don't even recognize each other, and go into victim-victimizer, and to play in the rights and wrongs, good and bad, and complete separation from your own essence of who you truly are, we had to take that on as part of the program. But what are we offering now? To ourselves, because we're all offering it to ourselves. We're offering ourselves to step out of this fear and survival mode. Now, as you can see, the world is changing. The world has changed and will continue to change. However, as long as we're giving power to fear and survival, then we will still maintain a smaller life. And in fact, you can see the life even getting more compressed, because you have less freedom to travel. You have less opportunities to experience certain parts of it, and you have less, or what looks like less, opportunity to be yourself in whatever you're playing, because now you have to abide to certain regulations and so forth. And I've talked about other episodes that most of that stuff is all made up. It is all made up. In fact, I wouldn't even say most. It all made up. Regardless. But the thing is, when we're talking about fear, when we're going into the whole experience of the fear part, you can see that right now with these accentuation, it makes our world look smaller and smaller and smaller. In fact, it's actually programming us that the world is dangerous. But it's not only the world, it's those little bugs and those little things that are all over the place, what we call virus and codes and whatever else. So now all of a sudden we're going to change the way we're going to live our life. And people are saying, wait a minute here, I don't know if I really want to participate in that restricted life that long. I mean, okay, it was great, a little opportunity to accentuate and experience it and so forth, and it gave me an opportunity to review my life, to look at and see how much fear and survival I have, but also to look at possible other options, possibly that I can get off the hamster wheel that I was dealing on with before. Possibly get the opportunity to have the break so that you can actually look at some of the choices you made in the live stream and say, okay, do I want to go back to that same live stream? Do I want to change it in a different way? Do I want to create something totally different? It's served in a powerful way. So what did it serve? To accentuate separation, to accentuate fear, to accentuate survival, but at the same time, give us the same opportunity to kind of slow down, stop, reflect, and experience all of that, and also experience further possibilities. So now we're on this particular platform. We're having this experience. And of course, we've had a lot of rollouts that have occurred the last few years, and then this year to really create a new live stream, new experience, personally and collectively. And that's the beauty of it. Now, for us to stop it, slow it down, it really can't. However, we can personally and then collectively get sidetracked and continue to feed the old narrative, the old experience, the old way of functioning. So when we're talking about making changes, how do you make changes and look at something different if we're so afraid and we're in survival mode? This is the beauty of this. Once we're playing with this, these two here, can we truly experience an expanded life? Can we truly not only change our personal life, can we actually change our collective life? Many of us are in a position to say, I want to redesign my life. I want to look at my life differently. I want to get out of the way I've been living. I'd love to be feeling more free, more adventurous, more excited, to see that I am not here putting in time to be able to step out of this and say, okay, once I put in my time, then I can have certain experiences. That's not the focus that people are feeling. It's they're starting to realize, hey, wait a minute here, okay? And that's the thing about the survival tool, is not only putting time, but also saying, okay, I got to play it secure, I got to play it safe. You've heard it a lot, safe and unsafe, all of that. That's part of survival codes, right? And that operating system saying, well, it's not safe. Well, guess what? As long as you believe it's unsafe or safe, then how much power, how much access do you have to yourself as the creator? Because again, the moment you give power to safe and unsafe, safe and unsafe, the more you give power to that, the less focus or attention or connection you have to yourself as source, as the creator, as the designer of your life. Because once you understand it, that you are the designer, you can create the illusion of safe and unsafe. You can create an interaction that may look like that. You can have a co-creation or even a creation of an experience that would support that. But that's a choice. Not only a choice, it is your own doing. Even though the illusion it's unsafe, the illusion that you're the victim, that something outside of you. Because look, if we give power to this particular virus, for example, or whatever it is, even though it isn't the virus per se, there's other details around that, and I don't have to explain that part, but even giving it to that because that's what we refer it to, again, are we a victim to it? Do we need to be afraid of it? Do we need to, see if we can survive by this thing coming along? Because if you look at the action, you look at what is playing out, it does not only make any sense, we're actually stimulating it even further. Of course, that was of service. But here we are. For us to experience what we're experiencing now, and what I'm talking about now is still the accentuated fear and survival, then we are more and more disconnected from our source essence. Now, we are doing much to stimulate the capacity of opportunity to be able to reconnect ourselves to that empowered state as the source. And then say, okay, there's no need for fear. There's no need for survival. I just create. I just connect with imagination. I just create with my own essence of how I do what I choose to do. And I start creating my world. Now, that will start with you personally. That personal experience will already advance the collective. And more of us doing that, then there will be more participants collectively to redesign the experience so we step out of survival. For example, we play the game of money, and if we don't have money, we don't survive. Well, again, the word is the game, word is made up because it's made up. And why would we want to make up that? Well, in the inverted matrix where we wanted to have victim, victimizer, right, wrong, good, bad, light, dark, and all of that stuff there, and accentuate fear and survival, of course, we needed to plug in certain things and also allow each other to play very particular roles to do so. But here we are. If we choose to say, okay, we're not going to give power to that anymore, and we're not even afraid of this because, again, when we look at the fear, we give ourselves the opportunity to experience the fear, and when I say experientially, get in it instead of pushing from it, then you'll notice it's kind of that taboo, or what you call that something that's hidden in the closet that, that may seem like, oh my God, there's something scary in there. But that's how it's projected because it's just an illusionary part. So here we are. If we start to abandon more and more the whole idea of fear and survival, then we can step into an empowered state and a flourishing state, and we start to reduce and drop all the different levels of limits that we have imposed under the banner of fear and survival, under the banner of saying, okay, it's only safe and unsafe and whatever it is. I've heard it many, many times, people saying, well, the world is unsafe. Yes, it depends on how you look at it. If you're looking at it as unsafe because of the fact of everything that's playing out and who's involved and whatever else, and you're going to go in with that idea, then yeah, you might create the opportunity to be able to experience that, and many of us do. in a very powerful and beautiful way if you choose to give power to that. If you see the world as an opportunity, if you see the world as a playground, and that you can navigate through this playground without, feeling that you're not in charge of your experience and the collective, because again, when you really look at it from the programming perspective, the program basically says all of what I shared, victim, victimizer, and all of that stuff, but it's also saying we need to be afraid, we need to be survival. So what does that do? It creates realities to match it. That's what the program is saying. The program is, this is a fact, and let's create experiences that reinforce it. Not only is it the dialogue in our head, it's not only the stimulation that we may feel physically when we get into the fear state, but it's also shaping the way we create our reality. So what we're going to do is we're going to create reasons to reinforce fear and survival. With understanding that already opens things up in a very powerful way where we can actually look under the hood sort of thing on how this all functions. So what are we doing now? We're deprogramming. We are deprogramming ourselves. We are unplugging ourselves from the program. Not only are we deprogramming ourselves, we're dropping all the labels and definitions and stories that we've adopted. All of it was great. But what else are we doing? We're shifting our focus from the ego's perspective that uses programs, stories, and so forth to a higher aspect of yourself. Now, this is why there's so many times, and I know I've repeated, and many other people have repeated, and you've probably repeated yourself, connect to your heart, connect to that part of you. So you're going to that source essence of your soul. You're going to that source essence that replicates, or in this case, emanates more of your sourceness. Because again, your soul, your higher self, and all the connection sees the beauty of the dancing game. It says we're not here to leave the game. We're only here to experience it, learn from it, expand from it, become a grander aspect of it, become more enlightened by it. And we're going to utilize it because this is the playground we chose to come and play with. When you're connecting to that, then you go into another level of play without plugging in fear, survival, feeling victimized or anything of that nature. So when you start to shift your focus, how does this really feel? Now the feeling one can be confusing because we have two types of feeling. One is an emotional feeling and the other one is true essence knowing feeling. That feeling, again, the emotional part of it is triggered by stories, programs, belief systems through the programming that will create emotional charges, emotional reaction, emotional response, and you can feel it throughout the whole body because that's what an emotion is designed to do. An emotion is a physical expression where you feel your body. You can feel the tightness. You can feel, especially when you have an anxiety, you're having a fear playing out or something of that nature. You're gonna sense certain things happening in your body. You're gonna feel the tightness. You're gonna feel, the heart racing or feeling the adrenaline pumping or whatever it is. Or feeling, you want to hide or you want to cry or whatever it is. Those are emotions that are basically programs that are launching stories and perceptions that you are feeling, and the emotions is the part that feels it physically. So there's that fearing. So a lot of people say, well, I feel fear. Well, yeah, you can feel fear because if there's a story around the fear and there's something that's triggered the fear, of course, you're now having a fearful emotional response and you're going to feel it. That's not the fear that we're talking about. That fear we're very familiar with because we've lived pretty much of our lives around that fear, around that emotional expression. So yeah, what are we feeling? We're feeling fear. We're feeling emotions. Now, emotions, some of the higher level emotions, joy, exhilaration, that connection to oneness. Yeah, those emotions, they're very conducive because it really stimulates your body to be in a very powerful way, but you also stimulate your experience and everything around it. We're talking about the other feeling. The other feeling is a knowing feeling. It's like a certainty that you sense within yourself. You've probably heard it. Does it feel right? Okay? Well, what are we doing? We're feeling into the experience, the thought, or whatever is going on. Does it resonate with you? And this is where the discernment and resonating comes into play. It comes from a feel perspective, feeling yourself in that state of that experience. So, with that understanding, going into that viewpoint of seeing things in that way, you're now tapping into your soul and your feeling. So, you can do this in several ways. You can experience yourself something that is very fearful, for example, if certain fears. You don't have to do it on purpose. You can have a different experience. But if you want to exercise it and practice, yeah, see something that makes you afraid. Now, when you're doing that, give yourself the opportunity to feel that fear. And when I say feel the fear, is to be present with the fear. Be present with any emotion. Okay? It's really instrumental. It's very powerful and important for you to feel it. Because a lot of people say, well, I feel it all the time because every time it launches. Yeah, but that's not quite the feeling I'm talking about. Yeah, you're feeling what's going on, but you're fighting, you're wrestling with it, you're judging it, you're comparing it. No, I don't want this, I'm afraid of this, or whatever it is. That's the feeling aspect of saying, well, I'm just feeling it. Well, what I'm referring to for your own well-being here is to be present with the fear, even the survival program, both of them. So if they get launched, take some time, be quiet, connect with that fear. Let whatever stories ramp through your mind stimulate that fear, giving yourself the opportunity to experience the fear. And if you want to be proactive with it even further, create more stories. I mean, we're all creative, imaginative. I mean, we do it all the time. We're imagining the worst. We're imagining the most horror. But don't stop at a certain level. Okay? A lot of people say, okay, yeah, get into the fear. Okay, let's write this here. We're getting into the fear and we're experiencing, and we're allowing it to reach a certain limit. We say, okay, that's as far as fear as I do. And most of us, we'll stop at different levels, but we'll go to a certain level of fear and experience fear only to this level. Well, what I suggest, if you really want to blow it out, because in this confined level of fear, it really doesn't get fully expressed. Because there's always a reservation, a reserve saying, okay, that's why we're only going here. Because if we pass this, we can go nuts. We can blow up or something. I mean, I'm just making scenarios to play with here. But what you want to do, if you really want to experience it and crash the program, allow the fear go beyond that. Okay? Don't even have a level here. Let's take it all out. Allow yourself to go beyond that. Because there's a beautiful experience that happens when you pass this. So how do you do that? Well, you may be afraid that you're going to catch some particular ailment. Or that somebody might kill you or hurt you or whatever it is. Right? So what you're going to do is you get to the experience. So the story, the program, belief system, if you go out, you go do this, or you touch somebody, or you touch the handle of the bathrooms, or whatever, you're going to catch this disease. Or you're going to go to the hospital and you're going to connect with somebody that's sick. Or there's a family member, or whatever it is, I'm going to get sick. And if I get sick, then I'm going to, all types of things. Yeah, I won't be able to work, and I'm going to lose my, my roof over my head, or whatever it is. But whatever is playing out, or that I can get physically hurt, right? So what you do is you allow it to go to this level, but then you now use your creativity and imagination. You probably have done that. Use your imagination and creativity to accentuate it, blast it. Instead of feeling, oh, if I fall down, I'm going to break my leg, you want to get to the point where you start to pump in there super accentuation. In fact, am I going to fall, not only break my leg, I'm going to end up on the street, get hit by something or whatever it is, and then while I'm there, I'm going to also get some germs because I'm going to scratch myself, and there's certain viruses that will go into my system and it'll start eating away my skin, and I'm going to also experience myself where I'm in a wheelchair, and in fact I have to be on a bed lying down all the time because I've had all these other injuries. So just inflated, because what happens is the further you go up in your level of creation of that fear, you're going to feel the accentuation. Now be present to it, feel it. And by feeling it all and pushing it so far up, there's a threshold. Once you've crossed this part, you're going into the level of unrealism, where it gets so far-fetched that your program and even your ego can't relate. It's going to go, no, that's insane. It can't even go. That can't all happen. Because it's saying, we can go up to here. We can have those particular things. And this is usually enough to keep us stuck in a box. But when you push it further, now your whole body's deteriorating to the fact that you are in complete misery and limitation and then die. If you push it that far, it says, wait a minute. Even the ego that wants to keep you bound is saying, wait a minute, we're not even going there. That's insane. But while you're experiencing it, this part, be present. And this part, be present. So you're going to feel those emotions. So it's going to elevate for a while. And then it starts to subside. It subsides because it can't be supported. First of all, emotions are not supportable unless you continue to pump more and more information. But it also fluctuates. And when I say information, stories, programs, belief systems, as this can happen to me, that can happen to me, and so forth. By allowing yourself to go further, you now break through the threshold, and the realism, the possibility, the opportunity is so far-fetched that it starts to collapse. And by you being present to that particular fear, and just use the one for the time being as you do each one, you go through that fear, you start to notice that you get to a point where it doesn't even matter, and it gets to the point of it's so insane that that level of fear that was there is not even sustainable any longer. So you're going to look at it and say, well, I choose to experience this, but do I have to support it? Is it something that I truly desire? You're going to get to that point. You'll be able to see that. So by giving yourself the opportunity to see the fear. Now, of course, the fear is attached to the survival, so see yourself non-surviving. Even with that particular example I given where you get to that injury point. So now you can, stretch it out to the point where you don't have the resources and the hospitals kick you out and you're still unfunctional, whatever it is. And now you're at the mercy of other people. In fact, you're going to end up on the street. And if somebody brings you food and holds you up, you can't. You get to the point where you are seeing that insanity or that level on incomprehensible, incomprehensible,
incomprehensible.
Yes, okay. She said it. Sometimes the words don't come out of my mouth properly.
Do you think too, Franco, that the bottom of all of it is the fear of dying? So it's like really releasing that fear of dying.
Yes.
Because this little game we're playing right now is like but a small, tiny drop in eternity. We're eternal. So, there's just, if we can release the fear of death, it can be a huge, huge help.
Yes. And the thing is, too, death is a program. And when I talk about death as a program, the fear of death, the end of life with death. Because that's a great example, because you can push it to the point, and as I was saying, but you can go to the point where you die. Okay? You see yourself dying. You no longer exist. Now, there's a part of you, when it goes through that, it feels freedom. Because now it's outside of the game. And it's outside of the confines of fear or survival. So, the program of fearing death is exactly that. Fearing death is a program. It's programmed to fear death. Because without that program, you become more fearless. But the program of fear creates the end, non-existence. Now, non-existence is not possible, but from a mind perspective, you can go to non-existence. But we've played with this. I've played it personally, and other people have played with it, where you say, okay, I'm non-existent. I disappear. I'm no longer here. I'm not stuck in this game. I'm not stuck in survival. I'm not stuck in victim. I'm not stuck in any of that, because it doesn't exist any longer. So this is the beauty of it. You push it to that point and non-existence. However, when you're tuning into your heart, when you're connecting with that part of you, because even if you connect to your solar plexus, you're connecting to your human entity, or even the body itself, it does not recognize non-existence. Because first of all, the body is a personalized, signaturized expression of Gaia. It comes from that essence. The human entity has had many, many lives and is interested in having more lives, and it has a recognition of that. So it knows it never ends. It just creates another opportunity and connects with another body, with another soul. And when it comes to the soul sees many, 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 many levels of creation. But every part of you knows there is no such thing as non-existent. From a mind perspective, from an ego perspective, it will create that projection. Go ahead.
Oh, Ravinder just is sharing, what about the fear of living? Death is not a problem, but being here is fearful.
Yes, that's a good one.
Ends of the spectrum.
Absolutely. As I started in the beginning to say, and now we can expand it because we're ready for it, the fear of living. It's a huge one, because it shapes our lives in so many ways. For example, if we're afraid to live, what are we afraid to live by? Because we have to have a story, a program, a belief system that living is bad. Living is dangerous. Living is painful. Living is has some form of experience that is not going to be pleasant. And that is powerful, because many of us have experienced the fear of living. Now, living to what terms? Say, well, I'm afraid to live at any term at this point. That's the extreme, saying, okay, I'm afraid every moment. And there are people that do that experience that. And it's a pretty cool experience. And it takes a lot of effort to create that and support it. Absolutely. Especially now that the energies are changing in such powerful ways, to retain that, that's pretty powerful. And if you're having mind wipes, meaning that your memories and even the capacity of being afraid is happening to you, then that's because the fact that even that's small of a world. But the thing is, people are afraid to live, afraid to adventure, to create more, to live life to the fullest, because there's such a deep program that living life to the fullest will extinguish life, or in fact will create the opportunity for you to be out of control, and you don't know how things are going to be. So it's very powerful to be afraid of living, because that's the only way you can experience such level of smallness or limitations. So, it's a very powerful exercise for you to go and say, okay, am I afraid of living? Yeah, everybody is going to say yes to a certain degree. It could be, if you're talking from 0 to 10, 10 being totally paralyzed about life and afraid any part of life, and 0 having no fear. This is a very small number, but we're all at different levels of fearing. And the thing is, yeah, you may be afraid of life or living, because living is dangerous and all of the other stuff. But any of these levels of fear cannot exist without any form of programming, because we can't support that part of it. I think we're running out of juice there.
That'd be include the fear of pain, as Colleen has mentioned. She doesn't fear death as much as the possibility of pain. So
that's true.
Is a big one too.
Yeah. So we're talking
pain
about
in many ways, like emotional pain, physical pain. Like there's lots of different varieties.
Great. Perfect. I love that one. Because pain and suffering is usually one of the powerful instigators of the experience of fear. And I've experienced that myself in a sense where I have no issues dying. I have no issues. But if I'm going to create and support a physicality that has constant pain or has constant limitations or anything of that nature, that would be a lot worse to experience, because you're now living through that. And then you're almost waiting for your term to be done. Of course, we can turn on and off any part of it. But the fear of pain, because this is the thing. Look at it this way. Let's take an example, relationship. How many people are afraid of getting into a relationship? What is the fear? I can have my heart broken. The fear that I'm going to be in pain because I did not get what I needed to. The other part of the pain is not being accepted. Could be from a partner, could be from your family, can be from your friends, can be anything. I'm not accepted. That creates pain, what we refer to as pain. And what was the other part? Pain and?
Emotional pain, physical pain.
Okay, so yes, there's the other part. So you have emotional pain and physical pain. Okay, emotional pain. The only way you can experience an emotional pain is a launching of a program that has stories, definitions, and so forth, and feeling, okay, I've been neglected, or I've been, misunderstood, or that I was treated badly, or something that I've create hurt. Because, for example, somebody is in a relationship and they're afraid that it's going to end because of the emotional pain that it will involve. And there's an association to that. So then we're afraid of it. So we're not going to venture into the experience of having a relationship, for example, or to put yourself out there and share with others. Or some people have the fear, and again, it's emotionally driven, that, if I present myself a certain way, I'm not going to be liked, I'm going to be judged, or I'm going to be exiled, or whatever it is, and I have to be afraid of all of that stuff, which, again, emotional pain is programs which are experienced from a physical perspective.
I was just going to say, and people often will too stay in situations that, even though they are painful, the fear of unknown is even more scary and painful to them. So they stay, and they don't,
You mean some people live in misery just for the sake, because they're
better
afraid
what
that
you
it
know
might be?
than what you don't know.
What was that again?
Better than what you know than what you don't know.
Perfect.
I've done it myself.
And yes, so that's a good example where, certain times we make choices and saying, well, I may not feel good where I am, and I am experiencing pain. And I've gotten accustomed to the pain, or that I created a certain level of tolerance. I may not like it. I may not, feel good in this experience, but this pain I know. But the ego is going to say, oh, you step out of this, you don't know what you're going to get. You can get something 10 times worse. You can be totally ill. Now you may be in a relationship, and just use this as an example. You're in a relationship that doesn't feel in resonance. That's creating a certain level of pain, discomfort, not feeling good there, because you know you're done with that experience. But if you go out there, what are you going to do by yourself? What are you going to do with connecting with others? What are even other people going to think that you dropped this particular experience? Or the fact that you have this idea that you may have hurt somebody because you made a different choice. So you can see how all of those things come into play when it starts to play with our emotion. But this stuff, as you can see, requires stories, belief systems, adopted ideas, and perceptions that the ego uses to perpetuate, to simulate, to create stories, but also visions and whatever else that triggers emotions that can keep you paralyzed, because of the fact is, like, this pain I am aware of. That one may be totally non-existing, but that can be because it's going to project, well, when you're there, you're going to be all alone. How are you going to survive? And so forth. I've seen certain people that stayed in a relationship for a long time and have, held on to, say, because it creates a comfortable homestead, or to some degree of a homestead, or financial support, or whatever it is. And I've seen this with many women, but I've also seen it with men. Maybe a little less on the men's side in the sense of when it comes to the financial part. But both existed. But that doesn't matter. They hold on. And I've seen it. I've worked with many women and men that have held on to a security aspect. Well, if I stay here, I feel more secure. Because, I'm not in a loving relationship. I'm not feeling good. I'm not being myself. I'm not able to do what I want to do, but I'm secure. Well, that's kind of what we were explaining before. You create a box. You create a smaller world. But it gets to so uncomfortable because, first of all, the ego keeps projecting this idea that what it may look like if you step out of this. And it does a beautiful job to project all of those ideas. But once they did get to the point, they pushed to the point and say, no more. Okay? And I can give you an example. There was one individual I was working with that basically said, I have not finished my studies. And they were older on in their age. I have not a skill set of some sort to do. I have limited. But, if I leave my husband, which, it's got the whole support system in there, and in that particular case, the husband was providing, but they didn't have enough collectively to say, oh, we're going to sell the house, split this and whatever. And that, I'm giving you one scenario here. So I won't have any financial resources because there's really not much except for debt in some cases. Well, they finally get to the point where it doesn't matter to me anymore. This is not going to support me. I'm going to have to go. I'm going to have to go, and I don't know what I'm going to do yet. I can go and do this. Well, sometime later, with the whole experience, we played with the fears and whatever else. They finally made a choice to go out and play, to leave that homestead, leave that particular partner. What happened is they started to look at themselves and say, okay, what can I do? They started looking for, say, what you call a job. Started to look at, oh, I don't even know how to pay bills and whatever else. So I'm going to learn. I'm going to ask some people, show me, do whatever. Learn how to pay bills and how to take care of certain things. Well, I don't know how to fix certain things, so I'm going to call somebody that can. Maybe I have friends that know, or partners that my friends have that may know, and they can show me certain things, and going through that. So fast forwarding, this particular individual that lived a particularly small life before in that relationship, now self-sustaining. In fact, does really well, and has created a homestead that supports them to the point where they've learned how to do a lot of different skill sets because they said, okay, I'm done with this, I'm going to go out there. Because once you do that, you see that you can create. Now, that's kind of a limited version, but even if looking at it further, the opportunities for other relationships were presenting. Now they're looking at it and say, well, do I really want to, or am I actually liking my single life with the potential to interact with others without getting into another commitment of saying, okay, I'm going to give up my life and live that. Now, of course, a holistic relationship is no giving of anything away. You still allow yourself to be 100% yourself, and you allow your partner, whoever you choose to play with, to be themselves. But then this particular individual said, nah, I kind of like it the way it is, and I will engage as I choose, not as in a sense where I have to go into the. Now, that was that perspective at that time. And the person is still today doing that particular experience, and they're enjoying it. But one of the things that I was told by the individual when I had a session with them, they said, listen, I didn't realize I can do all that I'm doing now. I couldn't even imagine it. All I kept seeing was a dismal life, a restricted life, probably a bag lady life, living on other people's mercy or whatever it is. I didn't see what I can see now. And that's what I was seeing. And that was keeping me bound. That was keeping me in that fear state. And guess what? They got to see that we have so much opportunities. And how many people have not known how to do certain things and have chosen to learn, because they freed themselves from it and saying, well, I may not understand it, but I can probably find somebody that can show it to me. Or in fact, I can choose to interact with other people that can do certain parts that I really don't have a pleasure to do. So you see, they can break out of those patterns. Now, the whole idea of saying, well, I'm going to leave this particular partner, I'm going to break their heart because, they may have been a very loving relationship at one point in time, and the love may still be there, but not where they want to cohabitate together, or play where one is playing one role and the other one's playing the other role and keeping bound each other. So the other particular individual also flourished, but chose to get into another relationship, and that was pretty cool. But that relationship matched where they were currently at that point in time. Doesn't matter what that may be. But you can see how we have the prey. Now, we had also the fear of pain,
Yes, I was just going to say.
Go ahead.
Colleen shared that many of her friends live in constant debilitating physical pain. It has perceptibly very much limited their experiences.
Absolutely. Okay, so yes, that's very real. Absolutely. And it's very real for us to get into the idea that pain has to, the physical, how do you say, debilitating scenarios where, their physicality may not be functioning at that point in time in any productive way. And I can fully relate with that very powerfully, personally. But I also have, noticed it with other people. One of the notice I've worked with other people going through that. So the thing is, we have the choice. We have the choice to say, okay, this is my current situation, and this is all I can cope with. Yes, I have constant pain, I have constant this, or whatever that may be. And I can go into the pain and say, I'm going to let the pain control me. I'm going to let my disability control me, whatever that may be. Or I'm going to let whatever my physical experience is projecting to dictate not only my creativity, my imagination, my choices, and what I experience in life. Now, the beauty of all of this is that we're very powerful. And we can choose to say, okay, this is my particular scenario right now. I have pain. I have limited mobility. I have certain restrictions. And I have given so much power to it up to this point in time that, I've been living through it. And I have allowed it to dictate my experience. So you say, okay, this is my current situation. Awesome experience. A blast. Totally loving it. Experiencing it. That's perfect. Okay. So what do? How do you work through this? So you say, okay, this is my scenario. I feel pain here. I see my restrictions. Let me sit with this. Let me be present with this. So the first thing you want to do is be present to what you're feeling, whatever that may be. It could be emotionally, one part of it. The other part may be totally physical. So you may have pain in your physicality. So what do? You allow yourself to be present with the pain of the physicality, not enduring it, not resisting it, not judging it, not giving it the opportunity to dictate how you feel. And when I say feel, how do you feel emotionally or how you feel from your essence? So what you do is you give yourself the opportunity to be present with whatever you may be experiencing physically. I've done this many times. I do it every day practically. Because as much as, I have many reasons why I wouldn't be doing anything at all, and of course some of the restrictions do limit me to do whatever, I give myself the opportunity to feel it and to be present with it. And by doing so, it reduces it. Now, of course, I didn't get it mastered, and I'm still a work in progress, and I'm doing a lot for it. I came on camera, just before starting, with a migraine of 10 plus, to the point of complete nausea and barely able to keep my eyes open. And here I am talking at an hour and 25 minutes, plus having having issues technically even getting online. Perfect excuse. I can't get online. I'm feeling very intensified experiences at this point in time. I have millions of reasons and to say, I'm not doing this today. But what did I choose? I chose, no, we're going to get online. I'm going to stand in front of that camera, and I'm going to do what I need to do. And if I can't open my eyes and whatever it is, that's okay. But I also gave myself to say, I'm open to feel whatever I feel, but I'm still choosing to experience whatever I choose to experience or do in this particular case. I am not feeling that intensity right now. Many of those symptoms have reduced tremendously. Why? Because I am said, it's not going to control me. I am choosing to experience this part of it. I'm choosing to do what I'm doing right now, communicating with you, sharing with you things that we can expand in a powerful way. So let's go back to that. I'm not here to put the focus on my example but I wanted to let you know that I've used this many times. Now, of course, a lot of the things that have brought me to the death point in any of those experiences, it's like, okay, I'm good with that. If that's where it's going to go. But what happens is that part of you is saying, no, we're not going there. We visited, we've crossed over a few times. Hey, we're going to come back. We're going to play here because we are here to do a very particular scenario. So, you were going to say something before I carry on with the rest of that.
Yeah, I was just going to say that everybody has pain for their own reasons, and it's not always going to be appropriate to push through regardless.
Correct.
And it's going to be individually. You have to look at what's going on physically, emotionally, program-wise, and in order to address what is going on, because there's usually lots of stuff attached to it. So it's not always just forcing yourself to just keep going. Sometimes it's your body saying, okay, take a break. And sometimes it shows up. So you look at stuff that's why it's showing up. So you can see what's going on other levels, because pain is a reflection of something that needs to be addressed on lots of levels.
Blinking red light.
Yes.
Yeah, it plays a lot of different roles. Absolutely. So the point is, if by doing those choices of saying, okay, I'm going to still do what I want to do, that's great. But going back to what I was saying earlier, is that you allow yourself to experience it fully, be present with it, because this is kind of what I've done many, many times. I'm not even talking about coming on right now. I'm talking about the scenario where, you wake up or you're dealing with whatever it is. You sit, you lie, you do, okay, let me be present with it. I'm just going to feel the whole part of the body and allow yourself to experience. So what happens is the pain level drops. But at the same time, as Kimberly was saying, that it's a calling card. It's a blinking red light saying, hey, pay attention here because this is coming up because of such and such. So you want to look at your story. You want to look at the program, what's coming up. Many times we create certain experiences so that we cannot. So for example, we may have fear. This is a kind of a different marker. We want to experience a particular experience. Say, okay, this is my experience. I want to experience this. Not only experience it, I want to live it, right? And you're over here in this part. So here, you're here. You want to experience this. Now, this is your current life. This is your expanded life. Now, you may have an interest for that expanded life. However, if you have programming where it says fear and survival, it may turn around and say, you know something? This has risk involved. And it doesn't really support survival. We may not survive there. We may be afraid to go there. So what is it going to do? A lot of time accentuate some particular experience you already have to give you the excuse not to move forward. So you may move a little bit, but you're not going to move forward into that part. So you probably have heard where people say, well, I create certain symptoms to give myself an excuse to not do something. So you want to look at that too. So experiences have always benefits of some sort. A benefit, saying, my benefit is that I don't go into that uncharted territory, even though it looks appealing. The other benefit is, if I'm going to stay here, people are not going to have any expectations on me. People are not going to be able to, whatever. Other parts, it's also choosing to show how committed you are and how controlled you may be by certain symptoms. So there's three parts to it. So is it controlling me? Is it allowing me to escape from certain things? Or is it keeping me from going where I choose to go? And when I say go, it's not even always a destination, but stepping into that part of your life that accentuates a grander aspect of yourself. Now, some of us will take on certain experiences and symptoms and whatever else to kind of really give yourself the opportunity to kind of have all facets of it and also understand different programs and also bring up stuff that you didn't even know you had. So we're all using it as various tools. But if you want to stay proactive and moving forward in a powerful way, you want to look at those things. You want to spend some time. So you want to say, okay, I am lying in bed here. What is it doing? Well, if I'm lying here, I have an excuse that I don't have to go answer 400 emails. Oh, if I'm lying in bed here, I don't have to go and do this. And in fact, nobody's going to tell me what to do because I am disabled or I'm in whatever that scenario. Or the fact that I'm too afraid to go do this, so I'm going to find an excuse. There's those parts. The other part is, that comes up is, I really don't want to, do that even though I feel the push. And I'm going to create scenarios so I don't move down that path or whatever it may be. So if you really look at it, there's a lot of different things. So you want to look at the story. So it's the same example I've given over and over again, and not even an example, as a tool to say, okay, what am I afraid of? Write it down. Fear. Then write down all the things you're afraid of. Spend the time to look at all the fears. And you can add to the list along the way. So you're going to say, well, I'm afraid. Or, because again, the fear and survival are one and the same. So in a way, one supports the other, right? So you want to look at, what am I afraid of? Okay? Am I afraid to do this, 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 and this? And if you are, say, what am I afraid of that particular? Say, I'm afraid to go out there and speak in public, for example. I'm just giving you an example. What am I afraid of? Well, I'm afraid that they're going to laugh at me. I'm afraid that they're going to judge me. I'm afraid that in some way I'm going to make a fool of myself. I'm afraid that, people are going to look at me a certain way and, cast me in a particular box and saying, oh, well, you didn't do such a good job. You're not ever capable of doing that. So that can be a judgment, but it can also be some idea of so forth. So you say, okay, well, you want to write all those things down. And then you look at it, well, so what? So how about if they laugh? Great. Or whatever, right? And you want to write down. So if they laugh, why do you feel bad about it? And you want to break it down. So what you're doing is you're looking at the chain that has been developed to kind of get to the end line and say, okay, that's the worst scenario. So if that's the case, if that was the very case, am I going to be okay with this? And if it says no, why not? Why am I not going to be okay with this? Well, because it's not my preference. Okay, so it's not your preference. Understandable, whatever it is. However, if it plays out, guess what? It may be outside of your preference, but is it worth it that you limit all of these other opportunities and experiences because of a non-preference or because of a story or belief system? Because along the way you may find stories. You may find, oh, I spoke out in front of my family and they judged and they laughed at me or whatever it is. Great, so what? What was so bad about that? They laughed. Whatever. So you want to dig into that. So you want to get to the story around that. Same thing with, physical stuff that may be going on. You look at it and say, okay, what's going on here? Whatever is playing out, write it out, and then you can find the core of it. Now, a lot of times we're presenting ourselves the opportunity to get to the point of saturation and say, okay, we're done with this experience completely. Not done because you're judging it, done because it's like, okay, it's time to move on. What do we need to do? What action do we need to take, if any? What is our state of mind? What do we need to look at and feel about my particular scenario? So it's really the first fundamental point is to be okay where you're at. So you're looking at, okay, this is what I have. Right now, I'm having this disability. Right now, I have this pain. Right now, I have this emotion playing out. Right now, I have this fear. Right now, I have this whatever, anxiety, whatever it may be. This is what I have. Great. Let me look at it. And you start breaking that all down so that you can look at it more clearly. Now, some, I've chosen, okay, I'm going to accentuate this experience. And if you come to that point and say, well, I need to accentuate it for the family or accentuate it for the collective or accentuate it for whatever, this particular disabled state, and then we'll go. Now, many of us get into the point of feeling bad about ourselves. So in that case, what you're looking at is say, well, I feel bad because this is all happening to me or whatever it is, and it's outside of my control, for example, and that's still a concept, belief system, or idea, then, you may feed that for a while, and then you get to the point of, well, does it really serve me to feel bad? Does it really give me my ideal life? And when I say ideal life, I'm not talking about what everybody else has taught you, what resonates with you, the life that you really want to express and experience. Because when you make that commitment and so forth, you go, okay, great, this is the choice I'm going to make, and this is the direction I'm going to go, and I'm going to take the action, whatever that may involve, to do so. So this is the thing with yourself. So you want to break that down. So if you have a particular fear, then look at it. Because the survival, again, what is it? I'm not going to live? What's the worst scenario? I'm going to have pain. Because survival is connected to what Kimberly was saying, emotional pain too. Emotional pain of heartbreak or this or that, or physical pain or whatever that may be, or disability of some sort, because yeah. But the thing is, if you put it on a scale and say, okay, my current life versus what I can create, which one do I want? Or which one do I feel more preferences? If I feel more preferences with this life, let me just do this. I'm going to move forward and play this to the max And I'm okay with this because this outweighs my created illusionary potentiality. Now, if you understand more clearly that you are the ultimate creator of your experience, then that's great. I think there was something else you mentioned about.
You mean
Because
the pain and the emotional pain?
yeah, the emotional pain. Oh, I wanted to say something about it, but I forgot what it was now. I guess it was something that you had said. Just I don't expect you to remember at this point, but anyways, I thought maybe it was just the top of your head. All right, so where does it bring us into the thing? It's for us to really be okay. So what, as I said, before, is give yourself the opportunity to experience whatever you're experiencing. So right now, I'm in pain, I'm experiencing. Allow yourself to be present. It could be emotional pain, it could be physical pain. Allow yourself to be present with it. Send it love, blast it with love. Love, love, love. And it's perfection of whatever you're experiencing. That starts to change it. It starts to shift it, and you will notice it. But then you want to look at whatever the programs behind that may be presenting. Now, let's relate all of this stuff back to how does it create our collective world? Because right now, we're going back to this, and I've already painted the picture in a big, powerful way. How does fear and survival programming impact our world? So we looked at our personal world. Let's take a look at the landscape of the playground we call Earth. Well, how does it impact? Well, if we're going to continue to support fear and survival, we're going to continue to give power to it, then we're going to restrict the potentiality we have to redesign everything that we have and establish as a way of life. If we're afraid not having money, as an example, then we're not going to look at other opportunities that would supersede that and in fact unplug it. If we're going to put fear on something that's invasive, that may affect us physically, then we may be not looking at how can we make life better. And when I mean better, I'm not meaning that one life is better than the other. How can we create a more expanded life stream, more expanded experience, more expanded way of experiencing ourselves as a collective? So right now, people are saying, how are we going to change the world? How are we going to create a better life? How are we going to step out of this restricted way of living? Well, the key here is to start dropping this whole fear of the unknown collectively. And we're giving ourselves the opportunity to do so because we're getting into the depth of it. So this whole lockdown, all this stuff that's been playing out is really super accentuated the survival part and accentuated the fear part. But as I was saying earlier in the episode, is that we started to see where it doesn't almost matter anymore because we're not going to give it the same amount of power and attention that is before. But how do we want to shape our world? So if we continue to provide reasons for fearing and being in survival, then the movement of change, the movement of reconstructing, redesigning our playground and how we interact with one another is going to be dwarfed or slowed down. Now, of course, as things get more accentuated, it's going to be harder and harder to do so. As you can see, a lot of the systems are being challenged. Some are collapsing. Some are forced to transform. You can see that some of the stuff that we're going through is uncovering a lot of the programs, are uncovering some of the stuff that's been played out that we had no knowledge about it or felt that was very supportive. Some of the things that we've put our value or security, as we use that word loosely, in those infrastructures are now not only breaking in the seam, but we're also seeing the underlining polarity and the negative narratives or whatever it is coming to the surface. So for example, some of the systems out there saying, well, they're looking after your best interest, children's best interest, or anything's best interest, now are showing how it was used completely opposite. So why is it coming to the surface? It's saying, okay, we need to look at the way we have supported and experienced life so that we now can say, okay, we're going to put an end to all of this stuff. We're going to get an end to the polarization. Yeah, okay, it looks like, there's a lot of victims and a few victimizers, really challenging the victims. But, we have to look at it and say, okay, well, we're not going to support that any longer, and we start to create changes. So a lot of stuff is coming to the surface. A lot of things that we held on as our foundation are shaking up, collapsing, or in some way or another, coming to an end in a way. So this allows us the opportunity to create something new. But for us, as long as we are still putting a lot of power into the fear and survival part, then we create more restrictions. But those, like I said, those restrictions are going to be harder and harder to hold on to. So by putting the focus to say, okay, how do I see my world? How do I see the world? Because you could say my world being your immediate world, but also your main world. And I know in one of the episodes we talked about imagination, creativity, and bringing that into the picture and the forefront. So when we start looking at the world, see the world through your creation, your desire. Now, that can mean starting from how do you see yourself? How do you see yourself physically? How you see yourself emotionally? How you see your current life stream? How you see your current environment? How you can see your current interactions with others, being family and beyond, starting to see how people interact with each other and how the worldscape starts to change. So those are all the different levels that you give yourself the opportunity to take a look at. You start with yourself first and you just continue to expand. By doing that, we start to break down the programming of fear and survival within ourselves. And then it starts to extend because you start plugging in more and more of it and it doesn't support it. And so the whole idea of seeing yourself in fear and survival on a landscape of the playground. Because look at it this way. If we're in fear and in survival, then whatever narrative is presented to you, which, there are our playmates, for example, the vac thing coming in, the vaccination stuff and whatever else, because of this particular, whatever it is, that encodements. So if we're in fear, we're more bound to say, oh, I want part of this. And I want that because then I will survive, because that horrible whatever, disease or horrible whatever it is, can be averted. So what happens? Because of the fear and survival, we're supporting that narrative. We're supporting the fact that we're going down that path. And that is optional right now. Even though there's a fast streaming of that, and there's many that may choose to go down that path. But for us to say, hey, I'm not going to support that because it does not resonate. It's not something I want to give to. Because if you don't have fear, you're going to go out and do whatever you want to do. And you're not going to catch anything because, in fact, it's up to you to accept it or not as anything. Even if those encodements are in your physical aspect of yourself, guess what? You still have the freedom to experience it or not, and to what degree or intensity you choose to experience. It's still up to you. So right now we're giving ourselves the opportunity to say, okay, we played the fear game, we played the survival game, we played the limited game, we've created infrastructures, we supported infrastructures, we believed other narratives beyond what we even resonate with ourselves, and so forth. And, that was a great experience, a great polarity, separation, whatever you want to call it, all of it. Absolutely fantastic. But now, where we are now, we want to create something different. And we're not even going to go, we have chosen to create something different. Not only chosen, I'm going to take action to start with myself and extend further to create a new reality, new expression, new way of doing so. As more of us are doing that collectively, the landscape will change a lot quicker, and we become powerful instruments, conduits for those changes to go through us. Because we have to understand that all layers of reality has a dependency on each one of ourselves. Because we're creating versions of ourselves and versions of other people, or which are versions of ourselves, but other people, based on your state of what you are creating. Go ahead.
Okay, Central is asking this question. Are we moving slower into organic 3D, 5D because the collective is in fear? Is the collective holding back those who feel ready to move on? So if you're not in fear and you've cleared your programs, is your reality going to reflect that, or is the collective going to impact on you?
Well, that's a choice, because if you let the if you're going to look at the collective as your reference point, then it will slow you down. So if you say, well, I allowed the collective to be itself, I allowed the collective to play whatever it's going to play because the collective is going through whatever it is, and I am choosing within myself to change my reality to experience, then you're moving forward faster. You're creating a powerful influx of all the changes and so forth. Now, when you're looking at the collective right now, it has, in a way, provided an opportunity of massive accentuation around fear and survival, to give more people the opportunity to maximize and what's the other word that I always like to use? Saturation point, reaching a saturation point within this fear and survival. Because many of the people that were in fear and survival, and we've seen it even in your observation of people that you interact with, that may have given so much power to it, and I've seen it with my own interactions too, given so much power to the fear and survival, get to the point where they've reached a certain level of saturation, maybe not full saturation, but enough saturation to already say, I'm choosing something different, and I'm not going to give power to any narrative that is presenting, or only part of it, until I choose to give it up completely. So they may not be conscious of all of that, but they already start to notice that some of their choices and action, or the power that they're given to what the media may be suggesting or what the collective may be reflecting, they're giving less and less power to it. By doing that, they're sharing that. By doing that, they're already creating another opening in the collective. It doesn't require everybody in the collective to get to the same page. Everybody will, but the thing is, it's the particular individuals that have chosen to be the forerunners, and there's many of them all over the world, that are going to be the instigator of that. So collectively, we are in that accentuation. That accentuation is already being very purposeful, because it's already started to change. Many more people have resisted, or have, in this point, made a choice not to give power to the same level that they were before, and now making further choices where they're spending more time with each other, they're spending more time doing things, rather than where they were totally locked down and so forth. Now, yeah, there's still a lot of around the fear of that, but you start to notice you're not afraid anymore. You're not going to be washing your hands 10,000 times, and you're not going to be, putting 2 and 3 layers of masks or anything of that nature. You basically choose not to. And in some cases where there's a mandate around that, you can choose to go in there and play it out in any way you want, but you can choose whatever you want to experience. But at the same time, you're not giving power. Oh my God, I'm afraid to breathe, or whatever it is. You're not going to give power to that. Those already create powerful changes. There are people that will go and say, hey, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to follow that narrative. And as long as they're not afraid, or whatever it is, you almost become invisible. And what you're doing is you're encoding that, and others will sense it and feel it and be stimulated to do the same. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I feel that it's actually moving quicker. It's actually helping the us to move into organic 3D and 5D quicker because of the contrast. It really is showing people what they don't want so they can move out of it. It's not actually, I don't feel anyway, slowing it down, because it feels like it's moving pretty darn quick. And there's a lot more people coming on board, and it's opening people's eyes because of what is going on. It's
Correct.
doing the opposite, it's not slowing it down. It's actually, I feel, speeding it up.
Yes, if you're looking at the momentum and the movement, yes, you're correct. It may look on the surface that we may have slowed down, but we were crawling at one point too, because we were so busy, so wrapped up in whatever was going. So the polarity, the intensification of what we're seeing is really bringing up the things to the point where you can't ignore it as easily as you did before. So seeing the people that were, a lot of the people that were totally driven by whatever the narratives were, they're stepping out of it more and more and more and questioning more and more and more. And that is an indication, like you were saying, things speeding up. Of course, energetically and the way we're speeding up too. We're moving through our experiences, our programs and so forth a lot faster. We're actually giving ourselves less time to delay any part of it. And if you've had a smaller so-called stimulation of whatever was playing out, you may be feeling it much more powerfully. And having, what's the other word that you use besides polarity? The contrast. Thank you. The contrast plays a huge role because it stands out even further now. And the thing is, some are biting to every part of the fear and others are not. You can see the contrast more and more. So you're getting examples of both. And you can now choose which side you want to support. Much easier, and you might see it much more powerfully. Go ahead.
Also, we should also look at how powerful, for each person who stands in their power, how huge an effect it has on the whole, way more than those who are holding the lower frequency. So we're making huge changes just by everybody who's doing their work and standing in their power. It really does make a huge difference. Even if it appears that there's such a big divide, there are, I'm sure, people that are just going to not get on board, but I do believe that those who are standing in their power is going to affect more of a change than we even realize.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well said. Well said. And the thing is, we're all powerful. We all have our power, but how do we use the power? We can be powerful in victim state. We're powerfully supporting and creating victim state. But the thing is, standing in an empowered state, what empowerment actually represents is a recognition that you have the freedom to use the power you have to shape your reality. So understanding the empowerment is the recognition that you have the freedom to use your power to shape your reality, your immediate reality, and the different levels of extended reality, including the reality of being on a planet and playing with all that is there to play with. Living a small life under fear and survival is less and less appealing for many people. And more people choosing to play a bigger life, to step out of that smaller life, is opening the pathway not only for themselves, but it's opening the pathway for many other people in the collective landscape to engage also. The possibilities, our probabilities are not limited. It is an illusionary aspect that we've internalized and adopted as part of our experience, that we only can create. There's only the whole idea of limits, the only idea that this is the only way it's going to function, is a powerful illusion to create not only the contrast, but to have us experience a very powerful, limited state of being. And now we're choosing to see much more that we have much more capacities to change our whole world. The thing that is being talked about is that it's going to take forever to do so, or that the fact in one way or another that it's going to be a painful and laborful experience for us to make those changes. But the moment we choose to say, no, we're going to actively focus and co-create, or in this case, collaborate with other aspects of ourselves, the changes can happen very quickly, and we're already experiencing it. Not only that, the more we drop the limit idea, then the possibility flourishes. Our capacities flourish. So if we need bridging while we get more accustomed to things, we can create those bridges with ease. So financial relief right now, all of a sudden, where is these trillions of dollars coming from at this point in time to be able to support? Now, okay, it may not be the ideal, but it's coming about. That's a bridge that we've co-created. It doesn't matter where it's coming from. It's all illusionary anyways, but we're creating a bridge, and we're going to create more, not of the bridge, but focus more on creating a bigger, powerful, more expanded life stream. That's why we're here, okay? We came here to experience a small life for a short while. We came here to experience what this inverted matrix, inverted 3D, 2D had to offer, to live under a domination of some certain elites, to be able to be in a world of extreme polarity, extreme limitation, fueled by fear and survival, to be able to experience accentuated emotional charges and pain. All of that. You came to sample it, to experience it, to be part of it. Only to get a taste of it and to step into why you really came here. And that is to transform, transmute, to bring forth this new creation. You have it within you, every facet of you. Your body's emerging into the more pristine design aspect of itself. Your human entity is bringing forth the more of those capacities and capabilities. Your soul is illuminating more powerfully, and then your mind is modifying, upgrading, rewiring, stimulating itself in much more powerful ways. We've actually stepped into the state where, the ego does not have to have the power. We can choose to put it into a dormant sleeping state and eventually become completely deactivated. We're doing that. We also have instigated from a collective perspective. We're no longer going to receive the streaming of reinforcing an inverted matrix, and this is why the streaming stopped. The inverted matrix is gone. The polarity requirements and all of that stuff is ended. It is no longer stimulated. However, we are still playing in the program that it exists, or belief that it exists, but it's dissolving more and more every single day. We are already in our new matrix, but the beautiful part of the new matrix, it actually creates whatever we choose, but at the same time, it has a time frame. And when I'm talking about time frame, we're not even talking about time, but it's only accommodating us so that we experience the transition. Because one of the things that we had looked at, from the back end part is, okay, you have your organic matrix that was designed 15,000 years, was fully active. It's always been active, it never stopped. But we were tied into the organic matrix. Then there was the superimposed matrix, what we call, why is these markers always at? We had the reverse matrix put in. that we experienced. This is the planet, and here you are on the planet. My key artistic work here. So what we were doing is that we have been living for the last 10,000 years with this inverted matrix where everything is backwards, and you can see that it's everywhere. So one of the key things was, okay, we're going to take this out and then let us go back into the organic matrix. However, the organic matrix was for most people a shock because they've built their life stream based on the inverted matrix. That means is like if you're used to driving backwards or playing in a playground that everything was backwards, then everything goes forward or goes into its correct spin or correct way of playing. It can be very shocking because there's not enough reference to be able to handle it, and it could be quite shocking and can be quite unstable, destabilizing in a very powerful way from our live stream. And then when those simulations were done, because this was offered some time ago, that it was too much for people to handle. So what happened is the removal of this inverted matrix was only established once I cut somebody's head off here. Was established that this organic matrix would also host enough of what replicates or simulates the inverted matrix to give us a bridging factor or an opportunity for us to shift, for us to be able to move forward in a way where it actually has organic matrix. Now the same thing we talked about. We started off with organic 3D 10,000 years ago. 15,000 years ago. 15K. When the inverted matrix and all of that other stuff came in 10K years ago, we slipped into what we call inverted 3D and 2D. And of course, we operated under this inverted matrix where everything was backwards. So that being the case, we got so accustomed to this that the transitional part had to incorporate the organic 3D. Now, of course, we've talked about organic 3D and 5D. So I know all of us have been waiting for this 5D part. So what does this all mean to us? And I know I've talked a lot about it before. So there's been accommodations in the organic matrix to be able to still support a certain amount of the inverted matrix and inverted 3D and 2D as we are shifting. So it's acting as a bridge for us. So these two platforms fully exist, and the utilization both exist. However, it's up to us, as we're doing the bridging, to go into it. Now, why would we plug in an organic 3D? Well, some wanted to still utilize it because they haven't had the opportunity to do so, because as much as we're saying we're going from 3D to 5D, we were really under inverted matrix, we were inverted 3D and 2D. So this is all put into place for us to have this transition, and that's what we're going through right now. So you're still going to see destabilization going on. Our world in our own mind is collapsing, and also what is reflected around us, only to give us the opportunity to create new. And that's what we're doing. And we're basically, sadly enough, putting an end to fear and the survival mode and going into flourishing, or what we can call flourishation. No, that's not even a word. I can't even make that one.
You can't even say it, you can't make it up.
Can't say it, can't make it up. Now, I have it in my mind, and it's really good, but I can't put it in words. I can't vocalize it. Anyways, so that's what's going on with fear and survival. So you want to look at it for yourself on your own terms, on what's playing out with you, and then it's going to be reflected on the planet. So what we're doing right now is we're shifting away from the fear and survival, because again, it makes our world stay in a small compartment and so forth. Our organic matrix is an upgraded version. It's not the first version of the 5,000 years ago. So in fact, we don't have to say, well, we're stepping backwards. No, we are stepping into our true but upgraded version of ourselves. So that's all I'm going to say, unless you have something else to share. Because you're the wise one that's going to...
No, I see that Belinda just asked, but so many of the collective are completely pulled into the old matrix. How can we move forward? But I think we answered that, Belinda, with the few who are holding their power can shift many and shift the world. It doesn't have to be everybody on board.
Correct.
Because it holds a greater frequency that has far more power than the lower frequency of the people who are not moving forward at this point. So hopefully that answers.
Yeah, because each individual that goes into a higher state neutralizes 20,000 lower vibrational states. So even the numbers don't have to be that huge for us to create the changes. Now, we're not going from here to here. We're already increasing on a regular pace. I can't think of the word. Okay. We'll use pace for the time being because I can't think of the word. But we're already on a path of that at an increasing pace for us to be able to move this forward. This is why you're seeing so much more changes going on, because there have been many and many more are coming on board because of the fact of the forerunners, and there's more forerunners coming into play because of the key forerunners that started, and this is creating a progressive movement forward in a very powerful way. So don't put your attention on, or I would suggest highly not to be focusing on where the rest of the aspects of yourselves are, but be on your aspects of yourself, or where you are and where others that are on the same path of moving forward. We're all on the same path in a way, but some may look like they're not, but they are in their polarized or locked up state. But as we focus on yourself and aligning with others that are moving forward in a powerful way, then we are really, really amping up exponentially the movement forward in those changes. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say it's just like focusing, taking full responsibility. Every individual taking full responsibility to clearing their programs and empowering themselves, or standing in their power, and that is what shifts our world. And like we said earlier, it takes a few to make a big shift. Can change a lot of things.
Yeah. So, in closing, you can observe the fear around you and the playmates that are engaged in the fear, but you make the choice. I am not going to play in the fear anymore. And if there's anything that comes up, you want to go through the fear clearing process, which we talked about. Write it out, look at all the different fears, whatever it is, and clear those fears, because then you are not going to walk around and experience life in fear, and that becomes a powerful, powerful transmitter, conduit of these changes, and it will allow things. So allow the game of the world to play what it is. Share as you feel like sharing, because it comes from you to share, but don't expect to change anything. See it changing just as the observer at the pace that it chooses to do so, but you go to the pace that you need to, and others that are on the fast track, or what you call as the forerunners, there are going to move even more quickly and be more powerfully in the impacting of all the changes. Anything else you want to say?
No, Claudia just shared your made up word. I'm not sure if this is a real word yet. She hasn't answered me, but fluorization. Okay. Fluorization. Yeah, we can't say it.
Okay, I can't say it, but anyways, that's a good attempt right there. So, anyways, go out and play, experience. Drop the fear and survival. Have fun with it. When you're dropping things, see it in a fun way. Play, play, play. Because as you see it as fun, as you see it as an opportunity, as you see it as an experience, it doesn't have the grip on you, because the survival and fear makes things so powerfully real. I mean, if you look at the fear, was it a false evidence appearing real? You know, it says right there. Maybe we should figure out what survival stands for. It has, I'm sure it has some colorful way to explain it. But anyways, so the thing is, yeah, go out and play with life. And if fear comes up, play with the fear. Experience it, clear it, whatever. You are going to do it. We've talked about it. Please spend the time to re-listen to this on a few occasions to re-empower you even further. And please, write it all out, do it. Thank you, everybody, for coming together. Thank everybody that has been contributing to support us on this work. We're open to receive. Absolutely. The more you support us, the more we can put things together. But the key thing I ask you at this time, share it with others. Like Kimberly had said in that little clip in the beginning, share, share, share. The more you share, the more it gets out, and more impacts people, the more people will come online more quickly for us. By subscribing and doing whatever, depending on what platform you're on, it also gives you the opportunity to know when all the new stuff is coming up. And at the same time, if you have certain more comments or just the like buttons or whatever it is, that wherever it is, it actually allows the different platforms to recognize us further, so that more people have exposure. This is about exposure. It's not about fame or anything of that nature. It's exposure so that more people get the content. This is the reason the content is being provided, because you guys are ready for all of this, and how can we share it? So we're sharing it. We're sharing it as freely as possible. Of course, we have whatever we have to deal with in the sense of, the financial part of it. But, I thank all the beautiful, powerful contributors and all the beautiful people, and it doesn't matter what that is. But that's not the focus here. The focus is share it, allow reaching and impacting more and more people. And then you are the one that's impacting them.
Also, just a reminder that Franco's doing a show tomorrow, a conversation with Joe Martino from Collective Evolution at 1:30 p.m. EST. So it should be a good conversation. They're going to talk about kind of current events going on and whatnot, correct?
Yes.
Yes, and I think it's on Franco's Facebook page, so you can check it out.
It's on Facebook. I've already posted it on YouTube, so you will get notification from it. That's why it's important to subscribe. It's it most likely may be streaming to Vimeo too, but it looks like that was one thing that didn't want to come up either. I managed to get the other stuff up, but Vimeo kept refusing to come up anyways, so it doesn't matter. But at this point, I just wanted to say yes. Joe and myself will be having a discussion on some of the things that are playing out in the world, and we're going to kind of just broaden the perspective and look at it from different viewpoints, because sometimes it feels a little bit confusing what's going on, with some of the narratives, some of the things that people have been reacting and responding to a certain way, and certain old patterns and ways that people see things and so forth. And a lot of stuff is being unfolding or opening up right now, coming to the surface and so forth, and it does create some fear and create some confusion. So join us. We'll be on tomorrow at 1:30 ED time, with an EDT time, which is daylight savings time. Standard time is actually 1 hour behind. So Eastern daytime.
Eastern Standard Time.
No, it's not standard.
Oh, it's not?
No, because we're in daytime savings. Daytime savings.
Okay.
Yeah. I got corrected by somebody, and they were saying, "Why do you keep putting EST when it's EDT?" I go, "Oh yeah, you're right. It's daylight savings time, right?" So Eastern daylight savings time. So you'll have to figure out wherever you are where that applies to you on your own time zone. Okay, so thank you again. Go out and play. Have a blast. And we'll see you next Tuesday. And we'll notify you if anything else is coming up along the way. So thank you.